Huh? Yeah. Good morning. We're getting ready to start. Those out in the hallway, please get you some of that good New Orleans coffee and come on in the door. We'll get started in just about 20 seconds here. Lucy's got us on schedule. Yeah, just come on in, sit down. It'd be great. Well, good morning and welcome to New Orleans. I'm happy to see so many of you with us here today, and certainly welcome those new members that are with us and those that have joined us for the first time. Welcome. I also extend a special thank you to our Pinnacle sponsors, Alcatel-Lucent, Ericsson, Interop Technologies, Cineverse, and TNS. We very much appreciate your support. We hope that all of you will spend some time at their exhibit booths on the floor as we move on through the day. I'd also like to thank Sprint for the after-hours party last night. I know I had a great time. Paul, I think everyone appreciated your hospitality, and I hope you had a good time too. I would also like to welcome those that are joining us by our webcast, a live webcast, through our broadcast partner, RCR Wireless. So as we kick off today's events, looking out into the audience, I really see a range of companies of which all of you represent. Some are rural, some are regional, and some of you do business nationwide. But regardless of your size, market territory, or resources, we all share a common goal and challenge: to create a market environment where we can all compete and thrive. As you know, last year we changed our name to the Competitive Carriers Association to better represent our common bond, but also what we stand for as an association. Our members, no matter what size or geographic location, share a common interest, and it focuses on competitive policy. Competitive policy issues really define us. And as an organization driven by the need of this diverse group, we must continue to work together to ensure that our competitive policy objectives are achieved. So what is at stake this year before us? Well, jobs, growth, ability to compete and innovate, and the opportunity to create a policy framework for rural, regional, and nationwide carriers to provide top quality services to all their consumers, no matter where they live. We really do have our work cut out for us this year. But personally, I'm motivated by actually those good things that we've been able to accomplish over the last several months. I'm confident we can continue that momentum. You may recall that Dan Hesse and I were just talking that you may recall that through our efforts, our joint efforts, AT&T and T-Mobile merger was blocked, which would have been a serious blow to competition. And so today, T-Mobile is one of us and is helping us achieve our goals and objectives. We also were successful in supporting the FCC in its defense of the data roaming order on the Federal District Court of Appeals. This is an issue of continued importance, and we will continue to monitor that closely. Another success this year included working with Congress and on the Middle Class Tax Relief and Job Creation Act of 2012. In the wireless industry, we call it the Spectrum Act. It's extended the FCC's auction authority. This included expanding FCC's authority to conduct, design, competitive incentive auctions, and authorize the first ever reverse auction of broadcast television spectrum. It also addressed spectrum aggregation and unlicensed spectrum use. And spectrum is the lifeblood of the wireless industry, and ensuring the FCC has the authority to conduct spectrum auctions where smaller carriers can get access to the spectrum they need is absolutely critical. Now, there are some issues that are particularly challenging, and we will continue to focus on these in the months ahead. We have not given up on demanding progress on interoperability and device availability. With the upcoming change in the leadership at the FCC and with the possibility of an interim chair during the transition, let me introduce you to what I call the new agenda. Now, Chairman Janikowski would want to be remembered for his pro-competition and pro-competitive agenda. But there's a few things left undone. The new agenda, as I say, includes at least 3 things that a new interim chair or new chairman, as we may say, can do immediately to restore competition. The FCC should immediately restore interoperability to the lower 700 megahertz band, promptly complete the mobile spectrum holdings proceedings, and confirm the FCC's technology-neutral interconnection requirements of the 1996 Act. Now let me explain these concepts briefly. Most immediately, carriers need access to devices that work on your spectrum. These issues are inseparable, and CCA will not relent until we find solutions for you. This is a major issue, particularly for many of the smaller carriers among us today. We know that when consumers think about choosing or staying with a carrier, devices are high on their list for considerations. And I know that the lack of interoperability impairs device availability. So CCA has made this point resoundingly clear to the FCC, and we all need an ecosystem that promotes device availability. And the FCC is currently considering our petition to require interoperability in the lower 700 megahertz band. And let's see if Chairman Janikowski would like to leave office on a pro-competitive note. We also will push for interoperability for future auctions, future spectrum, mobile spectrum auctions. Bands should be interoperable so we can avoid restrictions on competition. This year will be a pivotal and potentially defining year for competition. We will see a new chairman, at least 2 new commissioners at the FCC. The decisions made by the newly constituted FCC may very well define a carrier's ability to compete for years to come. A network roadmap to 4G LTE is also a chief concern for many of you, and I assure you it's a chief concern for me also. This year, the FCC will take a look at IP transition, the transition from TDM-based services, the old public switch telephone network, to Internet Protocol, an IP network. More specifically, the Commission created this Technology Transitions Policy Task Force to address IP transition issues. And did you know, hanging in the balance could be the bedrock principle of seamless connectivity between telecommunications carriers nationwide? It's a huge issue. And CCA will be there to advocate for a framework that ensures interconnection rights. Now, there's one thing the FCC can do immediately for the IP transition, and that is to confirm the interconnection obligations apply to the exchange of telecommunications traffic on a technology-neutral basis. So now we know some of the things they can do today, immediately tomorrow. Data roaming. At the same time, we will continue to monitor the data roaming issue. This is not over, and it's actually just begun. While we had real success in the data roaming order when it was upheld, we remain vigilant and encourage economically sustainable, fair roaming agreements. In addition to our advocacy push, we will also be pursuing a business solutions with the creation of the 4G LTE roaming hub. And I'll talk about that in just a moment. In short, access to devices and networks remain priorities for CCA because they remain priorities for you. And you need solutions now. We also have our eye on the horizon, thinking ahead, thinking about tomorrow. Because as important as these near-term issues are, one long-range strategic issue looms above all others. At the very heart and soul of any future competitive wireless ecosystem stands a critical need: solving the spectrum crunch. Over the long term, there's no denying that for small and large carriers alike, access to spectrum is truly a carrier's lifeblood. And our focus on this issue will, in fact, be unwavering. We are committed to directing policymakers to reallocating and identifying additional spectrum resources, supporting a functioning secondary spectrum market, adopting fair and reasonable rules for auctions so that every competitive carrier can participate, and implementing policies that prevent the two largest carriers from buying all the available spectrum to the detriment of every other carrier, small carriers, and the consumer. As the final and perhaps the most important part of the new agenda, the FCC must act now to complete the spectrum aggregation proceeding. This will have a direct impact on the incentive auction rules. Fortunately, the current administration, the FCC, and the Congress understand the need for more available spectrum, but the wheels in Washington turn slowly, sometimes way too slowly for many of our carriers, especially when we want to focus on policies that make more spectrum available to everyone through a framework of fair, competitive spectrum auction practices. We must continue to show the FCC and Congress how important these competitive issues are for the economy, consumers, and for the entire wireless industry. This means getting in front of your representatives, looking them in the eye and telling them that their decisions may mean the very survival of competitive carriers and also the jobs of many of their constituents. Members of Congress and the FCC hear from us daily, and they want to hear from you directly. So I cannot stress enough the importance of making the trip to Washington, D.C., speaking to them one-on-one. We've had great success in the past in telling our story to members of Congress, particularly when CCA members get personally involved. And we must make sure that the new policymakers, the new crop in D.C., are well informed and see these issues clearly from our perspective. So come and join us in Washington, D.C. Our legislative, regulatory, and media communications team, Rebecca, Tim, and Lucy will be there to help you. Everyone on their CCA team is there to serve you. Now, you can see that there's plenty of work to be done in Washington, D.C. However, the prosperity of competitive carriers does not depend on policy alone. In addition to regulatory solutions, we're also pursuing business solutions. First, there's clearly a lot of networking and business development that can be done right here and at other CCA events. But our commitment goes well beyond that. We created the CCA Industry Development Program and the Business Innovation Group, and these are made up of CCA carrier members. The idea is to help us help ourselves. The goal is to find business solutions that provide efficiency, cost savings, and revenue opportunities for our members. And there are several initiatives that I think you will find very interesting, and I'd just like to highlight a few. These programs are available to all CCA members, and I encourage you to call Brad Blanken or Patty Dominic, who run our Industry Development Program office, and learn more about these programs. But first, I'll just note that we have unveiled a brand new program, the Data Roaming Hub, the 4G LTE access pathway, which I alluded to earlier, because roaming connectivity is a real problem for so many of our carriers, and we're creating the possibility to make it much easier. We are very excited about this new capability, and it'll be hosted by TNS. And I think it's the only roaming hub of its kind, certainly in the United States in the industry, and for all I know, anywhere in the United States, but also anywhere in the world. So secondly, CCA we created a carrier-branded app store, and through this customizable program, carriers can build their own branded apps tailored to their customers' needs and selection from thousands of pre-approved apps. Now, last year, the U.S. consumers downloaded over 1.5 billion apps, and the smaller carriers, many of the CCA members, received $0 in revenue from all those apps, and we're trying to change that. We launched a new spam reporting program in conjunction with GSMA and CloudMark, so you and every carrier can defend against spam on their networks. This is the same service that Sprint and T-Mobile and AT&T and Verizon have rolled out. Now you too can have that opportunity to combat malware on your networks. So in closing, we clearly have challenges to restoring competition in the industry. We are working full steam ahead on all fronts. We are fighting the policy battles in Washington, D.C., and we are developing our own opportunities through programs that will benefit the entire competitive carrier ecosystem. and you need only to be a CCA member to take advantage of this. I trust you will also take advantage of your time here in New Orleans. There are lots of networking opportunities, and remember, every associate member here, every member in the hall, and every exhibitor in the hall is here to help you. And so I hope you'll support them too. Spend some time in the exhibit hall floor. You'll find interesting solutions for everyone. Now I would like to turn to the main event, and the reason why you're all here this morning, our first speaker